Okay, so we're going to look at editing this vocal part and getting it so that it's really, the pitching is really bang on. It's a great vocal, but it's just not quite in there with regards to pitch. I've got the track selected and I'm going to go to flex mode, open up the flex viewer, and the flex mode for this I'm going to set to flex pitch. So the little button turns on, so it means flex is enabled on this track, and flex pitch is the algorithm that we're going to use. Flex pitch is different from all the other ones because all the other ones, I mean, it's fairly obvious, but it's worth pointing out they're all time-based ones. So those are all for fixing timing errors. Pitch is in its own little category, and that's just for correcting pitch. In fact, you can do timing in the same one as pitch, which is quite good. I'll show you that in a sec. Great, so flex pitch is enabled. If I double click on that and make this big, so oh, it's popped out, that's fine. Double click again. So I'm going to choose on the little window here, choose track and open up the flex mode, show and hide flex. So this is the bit that we'd already looked at before. We can scroll along and we can see the waveform there, but also overlaid on top of the waveform is a keyboard. It looks like the MIDI grid, the key grid. And the key thing is that for each word that is sung, Logic has given us a musical note. And they're exactly the same as the MIDI ones. If we click on it, and if we actually listen to that, I'm not sure why it's not giving us. Usually it gives us an audible preview when you drag it around. Can't hear it on mine for some reason, not sure why. There's probably a setting that I haven't done somewhere. Never mind. So each of these notes, if I zoom in a bit, you can see they're not quite on the grid. So the first thing we might do is Command A, select them all, and with pitch correction, let's turn that up. I often try turning up to 100% first. When I let go, have a look at how these line up against the grid there. So if I go to pitch correction, 100%, they will suddenly jump to the notes. It's because they weren't quite on the actual note. They were, as all singers are not bang on. So now it's moved the pitch center, the where they're singing, onto the grid. I've zoomed out a little bit so we can see all the notes. If I bring that correction back again, you can see they are all jumping to the notes. Let's have a listen. Let's focus. So with it off, I'm going to play back this little section in the break. Let's just loop up that. Is it true that I'm falling behind? Do you care that I take my time? So in particular, that little section there is not quite on it. Is it true that I'm falling behind? you can sort of feel the pitch wander upwards, and I can see here, even though that musical note is on the note, this little white line is gradually going up. So that white line is the actual pitch, and it shows the vibrato and the drift of the pitch. So let's do the correction first.
Is it true that I'm falling behind? Do you care that I take my time? I know it's strange.
Already it sounds better just by putting the slider up to 100%. You hear it's subtle as well. It's not obviously auto-tuned. I don't want to go for that sound.
Is it true that I'm falling behind?
Listen to that again without pitch correction.
Is it true that I'm falling behind?
It's just not quite on. And it's that subtle thing that everyone is sensitive to that makes it sound.
Is it true that I'm falling behind? Do you care that I take my time?
So that's good. I'm listening to this note though, and that's bothering me. Have a listen. You can hear the pitch just wanders up a little bit.
Is it true that I'm falling behind?
It sort of goes up. If we zoom in, notice with each one of these notes we get these little handles, and there's 6 handles. Each handle gives you control over a different element. Vibrato is one of them. Sometimes there's a little bit too much vibrato. I'm feeling there's a little bit too much vibrato on these ones as it runs down. It's quite a hard thing to sing. Na, 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 na. The notes are quite close together. So select all of them, go to vibrato, click on it, drag it down, and notice those lines flatten out a little bit. So reducing the amount of vibrato in the voice.
Is it true that I'm falling behind?
And it's just smoothed it out a little bit. If we smooth it out to nothing, that's when we start to hear it as auto-tune.
Is it true that I'm falling behind?
It's not too bad actually, but let's put a little bit back in because we don't want to make it too robotic. The end of that note is still drifting a little bit, so the top right hand corner is to control pitch drift. You can click that and drag it down a bit. Notice you can drag the end of the note up and down, so you can just adjust that a little bit.
Is it true that I'm falling behind?
Great, that's better. It's not wobbling away. This one as well is a little bit too much vibrato, so let's bring that down a little bit.
Is it true?
And this one as well.
Is it true that I'm falling?
Better. You can hear it's really subtle, but taking the time and doing this to a vocal will give you really pro-sounding vocals, because it's what everyone else does. So you've got to keep up with them if you want it to sound as good as them. Of course, sometimes you get absolutely outstanding vocalists that just don't need any of this. That's rare though. Usually everyone needs a little bit of tweaking, because in the studio, we've talked before, it's much more important about getting the vibe and the energy and emotion down rather than getting the pitches right. Sometimes you can get away with a slightly pitchy vocal if they're really giving it some. I can see that one is, whoa, that's a little bit crazy. You get to know it by eye, so you can just kind of adjust things. I tend to just go along every 2 bars.
Do you care that I take my time?
A little bit wobbly, that one. So I'm going to select both of those, bring the vibrato down a bit.
Do you care?
That one has a bit of a pitch drift at the beginning, so although top left is pitch drift at the end, top right is pitch drift at the beginning. Just going to get rid of a little bit of vibrato and bring that pitch down a bit. Better. That slides a bit, so I might want it to actually go straight up there. That's, again, better. It's a cleaner jump to that note. Again, that one's... And over to the next 2 bars, just keep going along. I use the cycle so I don't have to keep rewinding. That's not too bad, that bit. It looks wobbly, but I might just leave it. Maybe take a little bit of vibrato out there. Ooh, that's not quite hitting the note. So let's bring that up a little bit. I think it's even the wrong note. Let's grab that. Ah, now it's playing the music as well. Better. Oh, that's gain. Don't want to change the gain. Although you can change the gain as it is. That you are always kind is a little bit messy. It slides through rather than... I kind of want it to be da 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 da. So for that, I'm going to grab all of them, bring the vibrato down. Oh, that vibrato has gone into minus because I fiddled with that. And for these, bring their pitch drifts down a little bit. That's a bit wobbly. You are always kind. I'll just wait till you change your mind. Again, we can have a listen to that little section again, just to see how it's working. Suddenly it's better. The mix hasn't changed, but it's brighter and it fits better. And it's purely because we've just polished the tuning. Still not sure about that one. Bit better. So it's then a case of just going through. It's takes a bit of time, but it's the kind of thing that once you're done, suddenly your track sounds better. Incidentally, we were just changing pitch then. Of course, we can also change. If you, I don't know if you noticed that Logic hadn't redrawn the screen. It's another little bug that Logic has. Sometimes just showing and hiding it and showing it again, the notes come back. I've noticed it happen a few times. What if the rhythm wasn't quite right? we know that we can drag these up and down to change the notes.
You are always mine. You are always mine.
So you can even change the melody if you wanted.
You are always mine.
Sounds quite nice.
You are, you are, you are always mine. You are always mine. You are always mine. You are always mine.
Yeah, anyway. You can move it backwards and forwards. Notice the waveform is also stretching, and so we can actually get the tempo bang on because we've got grid lines for the rhythm there as well. If we needed to, we can grab the beginnings of notes and notice the waveform moves with it. So each one of these is the note, and as you drag the note around, the audio will follow you.
You are always mine. I'm just waiting till you change your mind. I know you care. You are always mine.